Last week, after many of us had returned to our homes across the country, while our constituents were enjoying the beginning of their weekend, Paris fell victim to one of the most violent terrorist attacks in recent memory. Naomi Gonzalez, an American student studying architecture abroad, Nohemi, let me say that name correctly. Nohemi Gonzalez, who is an American student studying architecture abroad, was among those killed. A day earlier in Beirut, dozens of innocent lives were cut short in a coordinated attack on that city. Earlier this year, an attack at Garissa University in Kenya left 147 dead. And just yesterday, a suicide bomber killed 34 people in Yola, Nigeria. That attack was followed by 2 more today, driving the number of lives lost there to 49. Before we go any further, Mr. Speaker, I would ask for a moment of silence to remember the lives of those that have been lost. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the world is facing an incredible wave of violence with the single purpose of stoking fear. It's the kind of fear that keeps us from solving problems and that paralyzes us into inaction. It's the kind of fear that we're hearing in the calls to block refugees from seeking shelter here in the United States, violating all of our values because of an immediate emotional reaction. The individuals who committed these atrocious acts of violence are counting on us to fall into that kind of fear. And that's why it is so important not to. We must stand with our allies in Paris. We must stand with the innocent in Beirut and Garissa and Nigeria. We must stand firm in our role as world leaders and as part of an international coalition dedicated to bringing down ISIS. We must stand for the values that have always been paramount in the United States. And one of those values is opening our doors to those seeking safety. We cannot turn our backs to the humanitarian crisis facing the Syrian refugees. They are fleeing a conflict they're not responsible for and want no part in. They have lost their homes, their jobs, and members of their families. The only thing that many of them are seeking is a chance to start over. The vast majority of these refugees are women and children. Even more importantly, agencies involved with allowing them to enter will prioritize survivors of violence and torture and those with severe illnesses. If we can do it safely, verifying the identities and backgrounds of those seeking safety here in the United States, and developing systems to ensure that we don't let in anyone seeking to harm us, then we must help these refugees. It's not just our responsibility as a world leader, it is the right thing to do as a nation of immigrants. While we can't remove every risk, we do have an intensive screening process in place. And refugees receive the greatest scrutiny of any individual here. The FBI's Terrorist Screening Center, the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of State, the Department of Defense, and the National Counterterrorism Center are all involved in the process of clearing these people. As recent events have shown us, the threat of ISIS is real. The terror that they spread across the world, the violence they perpetrate, and their disregard for innocent human life are all despicable. We have a chance right now to build something positive from these tragedies. We must unify as a global community against the evil of ISIS and in support of peace and freedom and humanity. The only goal of ISIS is to destroy life. By giving refugees the opportunity to escape, we can save them. Mr. Speaker, I know that I join all of my colleagues in prayer for the lives that were lost in Paris and elsewhere, and for the hundreds more that were injured in the attack. I pray for solace for those who have lost their loved ones and friends. And I pray for peace around the world. And I pray for the good that we can do as a country that will build consensus with coalitions and partners around the world. And thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me this opportunity.